Welcome back to another episode of the Lonely Liberal Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Zankin, and I am so happy to have you here today on this lovely Sunday. I mean, my God, it's a little gloomy here, but hopefully it's not so gloomy wherever you're listening. Or maybe you're listening not on Sunday and it ain't that gloomy. But we got a good one for you today. We're going to be talking about this week's news with Rick like we do every Sunday. And my God, we have a lot to get to between the Iran war raging on, hitting week number 4, the drama with the counterterrorism guy resigning. You have Pam Bondi having a private freak out with people. You have Trump meeting the new prime minister of Japan. My God, there's so much to talk about. So I might as well just get to it. Thank you for joining. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. And without further ado, let's get to it. Alrighty, and we are back with Rick. Rick, what's up, dude?
Hey, not much. Great to be back. How's it going?
How's it going with you? You feeling good? We were talking about it before the show. Nice plant back there. I need to work on my background. I just have a half-opened, closed closet.
Yeah, thank you. I've been decorating my new apartment. It was weird shopping for artificial plants because I don't know if I've ever done that before. And I was like, am I supposed to pick the one that looks the most real? Like, I don't know. I need you to come over and judge this one behind me in person. And,
you could have got a real one right there, right? Like, I feel like that you got the window. I mean, you didn't have to go fake. Are you a plant guy in general? Like, do you ever really have plants?
No, but yeah, I gotta fill up this room somehow, you know?
You're like, I hate greenery. I have a ton of plants, but I never was a plant guy until this current apartment because it has so many windows. I mean, you've obviously used it's all the windows, so it's like felt like it's a good thing to fill it up. It's a nice fill up space. But you're a vibe guy in general. You're a mood lighting guy, plant guy, big time. I mean, and we'll talk about it later, but just the mood. How would you? We got a few questions this week that I was going to ask, and one of them, and I'll just get to it, was a lovely man named or woman named Joe, from Rhode Island, and it was based off the question. It was a half question, half comment. One, they liked your idea that we talked about the other week about multiple profiles for social media based off of trying to sort news, but it was more just kind of reiterating that same point. He was saying, these guys are just put me in such a bad mood. And again, just reiterating, it's just getting unrelenting. So I know we talked about it last week, but I do think it's worth talking off the top that we all can relate with the feeling of feeling like shit from this news. Especially, I will say 2026 so far, with the wars particularly and the killing of American citizens by ICE off the jump of the year, this year has been especially dark, even more than last year.
For sure. And more than Trump's first term. But yeah, it's okay to not check news for a few days. Nothing is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I don't think, we often talk about being, you don't want to be too apathetic. You don't want to throw in your towel, but that doesn't mean every day you need to just be throwing yourself up against the rocks, reading this shit, because it's fucking awful.
Yeah, and it's also this is the Steve Bannon Project 2025 strategy with this Trump term of throw so much shit at the wall at all times that they can't defeat all of it. The Democrats don't have the power to stop all of this. And the people don't have the time to follow all of these things. So they either won't know about them or they'll just hear their spin. So in a way, not being so glued into the news every day is also a way to push back against that strategy a little bit. You know what I mean?
Totally. Obviously I'm biased, but they also, the fact that you're even listening, people listening, are listening to the show. We're covering most of it anyway. And I know we're not saying don't read. Let's just trust us off the jump. But it's true to some extent. You're already participating. You know what I mean? By listening to a politics-y show, frankly. No one has to do that at all. I would say, don't feel so much pressure to, keel over. And especially if you're feeling, upset. You're cool. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's not one person can solve all of this stuff, and it's very overwhelming very fast. But anyway, I want to talk about it off the top because we got a few questions about what we talked about last week, and I figured
Yeah,
this week didn't heal it.
No, it's not an uplifting week to repair the past few weeks' traumatic news items. No, that's not the
It
case.
sucks too, because even good news like the Olympics, the guys winning the Olympic medals and the figure skate, it was such an happy moment, and even all that got tarnished with nonsense. Like it does feel like nothing is safe.
Patel had to be drinking beer.
And they were like,
the
we're only
hockey
inviting the guys and not the girls. Like, there they are. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just can't get away from these guys. So, like, it's just, Jesus. And yeah, I mean, this week is not the most uplifting week, but it's not the worst week, but it's not good. just only another 100 dead. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, week 4 of the war with Iran and the U.S., things have been chugging along in a, pretty hazy way, right? I don't know what you would say. Like, I don't know what is going on and what the goal is. It's really weird. I feel like the goals of this war, it's one of the least clearly communicated conflicts ever, Because you could, even the Venezuela thing, while you and I don't agree with it, they were pretty clear what they wanted, the oil. It was terrible morally, but they were pretty clear what they were going to do. And this is just, I don't know anything. Like what the point of this is still. I still can't really get it.
Right. And like the war with Iraq, which a lot of that depended on the existence of the weapons of mass destruction, obviously. Like with this, there's not the equivalent is the assertion that they had nuclear capabilities that were close to being able to be used as weapons, obviously. But like even that, nobody agrees if there's any evidence for that. Obviously, there's reasons to doubt that's the case, given that all of our allies didn't want to join us in Israel on this, and you'd think they would all be worried if Iran really did have nukes and were like about to use them or something like that. So like even the motivation for going in is unclear, but the obvious goals are switching like like every time Trump talks, I feel like the goal is different. Like at first it was like we already accomplished the mission in the first day when we took out the Ayatollah. Yeah. And now that it looks like his son may take his place, it's like the new goal is assuring the new government will be friendly to the U.S. or something vague like that. Like, I still don't know.
Yeah, and that guy keeps saying, I'm not going to be nice. Like, I'm mad.
Right.
The son, so. And, yeah, it's one of the weirdest things about it, on top of that, is this keep teasing that it's almost over, right? I feel like every single day, either Hegseth or Trump or someone comes out and says, we're basically wrapping this up any day now, right? Like and something like that. But then on the other side of their mouth, you have the Pentagon asking Congress for $200 billion. Okay. Keep in mind, I did an episode on Wednesday talking about all the things that we could have paid for instead of this war in Iran. And at the time, they were floating $50 billion. And we could have ended homelessness 5 times over. They've now upped it to $200 billion. And in fact, Trump has talked about it, and same with Hegseth. And Hegseth's remark was, very elegantly put, it takes money to kill bad guys. He added also that the number could move up, by the way. And Trump said it was a small price to pay. So I highly doubt that they'd be requesting $200 million if this was ending anytime soon.
Right.
200 billion, my bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a massive number, even compared with all these other discussions about like them cutting funds and research and stuff like that. Like when you're dealing with defense budget conversations, like the amount is so much more than anything else that's like regularly discussed. But yeah, like $800 base billion, roughly $800 billion base budget for the Department of Defense. Then they added 150 in the big beautiful bill, and now they're looking to add 200. So 200 on top of the roughly $1 trillion budget they already have. And it's like, why do we have that $1 trillion base budget if they can't use that to accomplish whatever military goals are taking place? You know what I mean? Like, why
Totally.
do they need any additional money? Why do they even need $5 more? They have $1 trillion.
And this is a group that says they can't pass an audit. So we literally don't know where the money goes.
Right.
That's what that means. And it's just the hypocrisy is so insane, especially given the effects that Doge had and the whole point of the Doge experiment that failed. I mean, one of the things that does not get talked about enough is how much of a failure Doge was. It was a total flop. And it was a huge part of the campaign. Now, I don't ever expect MAGA to hold Trump accountable. Like that ship is long gone. But I do think that a lot of the people listening, because we have a big, 40% of the people listening are conservative, right? So I bet you a lot of the people listening, how's it going? They genuinely feel like the national debt is a huge problem. My God, it hit 39 trillion. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. And a big part of the reason why they may have voted for Trump was because of this deficit spending kind of rhetoric. Frankly, I think that's actually quite an appeal to a lot of people for the Republican Party in general, because they feel like the spending is out of control. And, we can argue if that makes any sense, actually. But I think people really think this. And so what I don't understand is they should be fuming about how Doge was a bust. They should be fuming that they cut billions of dollars of benefits away from healthcare and food, supposedly because they cared so much about the debt. This is just so hypocritical. It should be driving you nuts. It should just be driving everyone nuts. Anyone who cares about the debt should be losing their mind.
Right. Because these are giant figures, like a lot of the headlines with Doge was, in the millions of dollars, cutting 10 million to brain research, cutting 50 million from this cancer research. Like that's what
AIDS
they were
victims.
mostly. Yeah.
They were really
homeless veterans. That's what they were focused on cutting money from. But it was almost always in the millions. And famously, there was that story of Musk saying, I just saved 20 billion, and it turned out it was 10 million, like off by such an unbelievable amount.
1,000 times.
But even in that story, the number he made up was saving 20 billion. So like we're talking about like
yeah, that's a good point.
10 times that in additional money they're asking for now, just for this unnecessary war where they haven't outlined the reasons or goals, even though we're a month into it yet.
And the Pentagon has said that they've spent around $15 billion, right? So, first of all, there's no way that's like an aggressive figure. There's no way they're reporting an aggressive figure. They're definitely underselling that, for sure, because those are the numbers they're coming out with. So, that's almost like $1 billion a day they're spending. People need to wrap their head around that. And they fired like 10,000 government workers or whatnot because they said it was too much money was going to government paychecks. So let me get this straight. The outcome of all of that was thousands of people lost their job, millions of people lost their health care and food, and now there's a bomb to Iran. That was the trade? What a bad trade. Like, it's just like, it's hard to like even talk about because it's so unbelievably stupid and hypocritical and so backwards and what nobody wants. Who wants this?
Right.
I don't know.
Israel.
Israel really likes this. Oh, and speaking of which, we actually got another question about this, and I don't know if you've seen the rumors. It was from a Jerry, and they didn't say who, but I remember Jerry said this. Thank you, Jerry, for your lovely question. Hello, Jerry, if you're listening. He wanted to know if we thought Bibi Netanyahu was dead, and I don't know why. So at first I was wondering, and then I was looking at the conspiracies with the AI hands and stuff like that, and I figured not a bad time to ask. So Rick, is he dead?
My Jewish sources say no, still alive.
And we know you're tapped in.
Yeah, I'm tapped in.
Exactly.
No, I did hear that though, that there was like a conspiracy that he was dead, but then he did a very public press conference or whatever, like 2 days later.
Yeah, he's fine. He's kind of unfortunately. I mean,
right.
it would be maybe for the better. I mean, no, he's still kicking. I mean, it just shows you how weird our society is, though, because remember when Trump went offline for like a day and everyone's like, he's dead?
Right.
Just shows you how much he's messed with our brains. If we're not hearing from him 24/7, we're like, he must be dead. No other
Except like the
explanation.
Netanyahu theories are get into like, oh, there's body doubles, pretending to be
His
him still alive.
are
Whereas,
weird.
like, the conspiracy theorists won't even believe that for Trump. It's like it'd be too hard to mimic this guy's appearance. Like nobody, God can't make this twice. You know what I mean?
Well, and Melania also had the body double drama, right?
Yeah.
And you know what's funny about Melania? Quick tangent. We haven't heard much about how the documentary did. There was a lot of huff about it.
Yeah. No Oscar nominations.
Weird.
This past weekend. No Oscar wins.
The woke left clearly weren't prioritizing that. That must have been a real flop because no one's reported any of the numbers. So if there was any victory, that would be everywhere.
It turns out the audience for a fashion MAGA movie isn't as large as the production company believed they were making.
By the way, most famous fashion statement is wearing a weird hat.
Right.
A hat that covers your face. A mysterious fedora is her big fashion statement. And it doesn't get talked enough about how she is an immigrant who speaks broken English, is his wife, and he hates immigrants who speak broken English.
Of course.
That logical gap.
And she might have overstayed her visa when she was first in the country.
Yeah, that really gets
unbelievable.
A pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that. Where is she from? Do you know where she's from? I don't know where she's from.
I forget. I don't want to guess.
Eastern European.
Eastern European, yeah, for sure.
That's what I would have guessed. Anyway, back to the news. So, but other than that 200 billion mark, which is, by the way, absolutely bonkers. That should be. There's, of course, will he, won't he, boots on the ground. I feel like this is getting, every week we get this, will they, won't they, kind of effect. And the fact that they keep teasing it out makes me feel like it will happen. Especially because what else could get an end game that could even remotely seem as a success other than like a full-blown regime occupation slash change? I've also heard some news that they were thinking about seizing the uranium from Iran with ground troops. I don't know. Right? We don't know yet. It seems TBD, but I definitely think they'll keep talking about it until a decision is made. I mean, I don't think they'll say no.
For sure. And there's already 50,000 U.S. troops in the region. It's just they're asserting that so far they've only been operating land and sea in terms of the Iran war. Or sea and air, I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And like avoiding technically a grant, but it seems like they're like already on the way. Like they announced more Marines are shipping out there, and like I read that a source within the White House said that like if Trump wants to end the war as soon as possible because of how politically unpopular it is, that might push him to use the ground troops sooner. Because like you said, like if he's convinced the only way they'll accomplish any of these goals is with ground troops, then like what is he going to do? Just pull out and just admit defeat? No, he's never admitted a mistake in his entire life, so that's not likely.
Exactly. I wouldn't bet on it.
Right. Or he does the thing that his war hawk, more aggressive generals within the cabinet are telling him to do, which is like, we need to get this done now. We need to put troops on the ground.
And it really ties really well to this other thing, which is Trump's consistent fury now at NATO allies for not helping patrol the strait. What does that mean? For those who don't know, the Strait of Hormuz is an area controlled by Iran where a lot of oil goes back and forth. They've closed the strait, aka they said we will fly explosive drones and shoot any vessel that goes by, other than Chinese vessels, by the way. So don't go there, right? So Trump wants NATO allies to patrol, and he's pissed that they said that they won't do it. Or they said, we don't even know what you want. We're not doing anything without more of a formal plan. I think it's worth spending some time talking about what an absolute asshole he is here in this case. I can't believe, no, I can totally believe it, actually. But it is just so unbelievable in general that Trump thinks he can go a year and a half absolutely railing on NATO, tariffing them like crazy, threatening to invade Greenland, right? Saying that we don't believe in the sovereignty of Greenland. We are going to tax you if you don't give us Greenland. Completely talking shit about Europe 24/7. And then he goes into a war without telling them and says, you people are useless because you won't come jump and help me out here. Why does he think he can just be such an asshole and just have no consequences? He's so ridiculous with how little, like words mean so little to him, I think. I think that's what it really speaks to. He doesn't mean anything he says in any serious way whatsoever. And his value of language is so low, I guess. Does that make sense to you? Like, how else can you interpret his fury here? I mean, Lindsey Graham said NATO's insufficient enthusiasm made Trump, he said, I've never seen him so angry in my life. What do you think about this, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up. He spent the past year plus alienating all of our biggest allies, going so over the top. He basically started a trade war with the world.
Yep.
In addition
Mostly
to
our allies.
Right. In addition to pissing off NATO, not defending Ukraine to the extent that he should, all these different things. It's just like where does he get off? You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, it's
the sense of entitlement. It really is like the stereotype of America and like how we just go send our troops anywhere and overthrow anywhere, and we just think that it's justified and we deserve to be able to do that. It's really like that on steroids. It's like that personified to the max in one individual person, because the fact that he like you said, like he invaded a country which has major immediate international implications, not just defense, but because of the oil component, without telling anyone. And then he's like, why aren't you guys helping me? And it's like, because you just shocked the world and caused a global economic crisis, and we're supposed to just apologize to you?
Exactly. And you have literally spent the last year and a half trying to destroy our economy. and in the case of Canada, saying we're not even a real country. I mean, you spent a whole year saying Canada doesn't exist and it should be the 51st state of the US. And also, I don't think people understand how insane it is, the Greenland stuff. Like, he was saying we were going to invade What are you defending it with a boat? We're going to take it if we want. Ba, 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 ba. And now, how pathetic does he really thinks you're? It's the same way he thinks about with MAGA, his own base. He thinks they're so dumb and so pathetic that he can just do whatever he wants with zero consequence. And I don't blame him for thinking that, because he literally does whatever he wants with zero consequence. I mean, it's
Right.
crazy.
His whole life, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing shows that more than his relationship with Epstein and stuff like that.
Right.
Or the fact that he somehow parlayed a mugshot and felony charges to becoming a martyr. It's just, dude, he breaks the law and he becomes more popular. He's best friends with Epstein and like caught all over the files, and they still don't care. His lack of consequence, he dodges drafts. He doesn't pay taxes. He doesn't pay he brags about it. And so he thought, oh, I can just bully a continent and they'll just still come crawling back to me. It's just crazy.
He talks about these countries like they're not sovereign countries and their people aren't that important. That's his behavior towards Europe, towards Canadians, towards Mexicans. Like,
oh my God.
a whole list of our allies, he just always talks about them like they're barely even a thing that should be acknowledged. And that, like, but this is such a clear example because he's done everything possible to ruin his relationships with all his allies. And then he started a war that's such a complete mess, even a few weeks in, that he's realizing, like, oh shit, despite us having $1 trillion and a blank check, we still can't do this ourselves.
No, because things are so expensive. Like rebuilding infrastructure. Think about it. Iran keeps striking all these energy infrastructure things in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, the UAE, wherever. All of these are going to have to be rebuilt. All of those costs that are getting implied from the troops there and the injuries and the insurances, like rebuilding the vessels that even if they don't get totally blown up, they still take damage. Like these costs mount like crazy. I mean, we saw $1 billion a day. And let's be real. Oil prices are up 45% since the war began. That's just a fact, right? The only reason why he cares about this is because of the political ramifications because of higher gas prices, period. And like, also, people listening should know, and we have actually a weirdly, and I appreciate everyone who listens internationally. We have a big international listenership. It's actually our big chunk of our listeners. Hello, we love you. Sorry. I'm really sorry.
So sorry.
I'm so sorry. I'm so embarrassed. But no, like the U.S. is a huge oil producer, so we're actually less reliant on Middle Eastern oil than a lot of Europe and Japan is, for example. So actually, this war and the way they've closed the strait has hurt has had larger economic impact on them than us because of our normal reliance on a lot of natural gas and a lot of oil independent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely.
So,
and I mean that it gets at, Trump saying higher prices actually help America, a couple weeks back
because it's crazy.
Because he's worried about the bonus size of the CEO of ExxonMobil over the price of gas for everyone else.
He's such a piece of shit. Anyway, and to top it all off, and this is we kind of buried the lead a little bit, but it's worth talking about, is that Joe Kent, who is effectively the top counterterrorism official in the whole administration. I mean, you could say it's Gabbard, but this guy is definitely he resigned on Tuesday, and he released a resignation letter. And what it said, I'm just going to read off of it. It said that Iran posed no direct or imminent nuclear threat to the U.S. Senator John Ossoff later this week basically grilled Tulsi Gabbard, his boss, and he said, like, is that true? And she said, No, it wasn't true. The nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. So she stuck back by the old narrative from last year. So that's obviously contradictory. But of course, Trump took no time to bury this guy, called him weak, pathetic, great he's gone, blah, blah, blah. And it should be remembered, though, that this guy was a big MAGA guy. Joe Kent. He is not a, moderate even. He's a pretty right-wing guy. So this is a big deal. And again, more and more kind of signs of breaks in the maybe not the real MAGA base, not like the nationwide MAGA base, but the more political and like administrative MAGA base.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the different parts of the MAGA base usually eat up whatever narrative Trump says, but in the case of the war in Iran, the arguments are so muddled and bad of why
Yeah.
we're there that I feel like the America First crowd is really like splitting from the administration on this because like they're not buying the argument that this war is an America First move. Like which makes sense because Trump is doing a terrible job at even trying to make that argument. Because it seems more like Israel wanted to take out the Iranian government and the U.S. agreed to tag along.
Because apparently that's all that matters in this country anyway, whatever Israel. I mean,
Right.
It's so risky. This is it's just bad. But I do think it's kind of to the side, but it's the same stories. It's just like speaking about the NATO thing. So not only is he mad that the group he's been bashing for the last year and a half doesn't want to join in, they don't want to join in a war that our own country said wasn't warranted. Our top terrorism guy said this isn't a real. So not only why would they want to do it if it has no point and you've been a dick?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's not even like it was a real threat according to our own counterterrorism people. So if you're listening, you have to make a choice. You have to think either there's two things are true, like both can't be true, either one or the other. Either this guy, Joe Kent, lifelong, like MAGA guy who's in charge of the counterterrorism group, is randomly bucking against Trump because actually he's too woke and he's a liberal psyop, or he has just enough decency somewhere in that soul of his that he just couldn't continue. It's either one or the other, right? What do they think he's
Right.
paid by MSNBC? Like what's the angle here?
Right. And two of the biggest podcasters in the world, Joe Rogan and Sean Ryan. I don't know if you're familiar with Sean Ryan, but
No.
he has his podcast is like number 3 in the world right now. He's like an ex-military guy who like voted for Trump, but like his podcast isn't fully like politics to the extent that like Rogan or like Tucker Carlson is, but he's still like a right guy who's supported Trump. He like did this segment on his podcast last week playing all the clips of Trump and his cabinet saying a vote for Harris is a vote for more wars in the Middle East. And then you similarly saw Joe Rogan say, like, I thought this was America First. Like, I just don't understand. Like, part of the reason I voted for him was the no more endless war thing. So, like, this does seem like a legitimate turning point. Maybe even more so than the Epstein scandal, if you're talking about the MAGA base, which doesn't really make sense to me. But,
No.
like, it's better than nothing, you know?
Why do you think that is, though? Because I agree. It does feel like that.
Because they're able to convince themselves that Trump really wasn't that good friends with Epstein.
Yeah.
And they're not able to convince themselves that this war is totally necessary to the self-defense of the country.
And
they can't find a good enough spin with this war like they can with everything else.
do you think it's partially due to the Israel relation and Israel being randomly one of the bipartisan agreement issues? Like, it almost feels like out of all the issues that you could maybe label bipartisan, it does seem like there is a bipartisan kind of groaning about Israel to an extent. For different reasons, you know what I mean? Obviously. But it does kind of the Venn diagram does seem to overlap there a little bit. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. Because from Republicans, it's like, why are we giving them so much money and control over our foreign policy? And from Democrats, it's the same thing, but it's more also a humanitarian concern, which is obviously
Exactly.
big. But it's weird because like Israel's been one of those things that the two parties agree on supporting, like
The other way.
opposite
Yeah,
direction.
exactly, yeah.
For pretty much the whole history of their country.
Us 100
But
years,
like, yeah, things are starting to turn where like during Obama's second term, when Netanyahu came and spoke to Congress at the invite of congressional Republicans, they went around Obama to bring in a foreign president. And it was seen as like, oh my God, Obama is taking this huge step away from Israel. Like he's the most anti-Israel president, blah, blah, blah. I feel like now that's becoming mainstream for elected officials to have that amount of skepticism that Obama had, which still is saying like Israel is an important ally. We will continue to support them, but we can't just give them a blank check, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's true. And it also doesn't help that Bibi is literally a war criminal in the International Court of Justice. Like he can't even go to half the countries. Like,
Right.
like that doesn't make it a good look hosting him and partying with him when he's literally in the eyes of international law. It's an interesting point, and it actually ties less to our final question that we got. And this is from New York. So we know we oddly usually get a lot of Midwest. The Midwesterners are much more inquisitive typically of our listens. We get a New York listen. This is Mike from New York. And it's a great question that I really want to hear your thoughts on. And it's, do you think Tucker Carlson is going to run for president?
Yeah, I could see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, of the MAGA sphere biggest political figures, he has one of the most loyal followings, I would say, and the biggest name recognition, right? What do you think he is?
I don't know. I mean, I do think he could be a dangerous candidate in the sense that I do think his actual beliefs are very aligned with what Trump pretends they are. America first, very isolationist, like that kind of rhetoric. I do think Tucker Carlson actually thinks that stuff. And frankly, I think a lot of people do in this country. I think that's a big part of the conservative base is just kind of really just sick of any degree of foreign intervention, period. And Tucker, I wouldn't call him well-spoken, but he's definitely more well-spoken than a lot of MAGA politicians, right? He's more well-spoken than Steve Bannon or Stephen Miller, Ted Cruz even, or whatever, or random Senator X. So I do think he does have that allure. Here's another question for you. If the 2028 ballot was, and God help us if this is the case, please to God it's not, is Gavin Newsom versus Tucker Carlson, who do you think would win?
That's a good question. I think it probably has a lot to do with how the economy is doing at
In the
the end
moment.
at the end of this Trump term. I think if the economy is bad, it's going to be tough for any Republican to win because you're going to have so much baggage in addition to overcoming that. And the country just likes to switch back and forth, obviously, nowadays. So I
agree.
would bet on Gavin, but I wouldn't be. I'm hoping that there is a better candidate that I have more faith in winning the general than Gavin, but he could win.
I feel like that's a good litmus test for any candidate the Democrats put out. If you couldn't definitely beat Tucker Carlson, you probably shouldn't be running for president. I feel like that's safe. No?
If you can't beat the king of Zin in a debate,
Stay home.
Yeah.
I think you can stay home.
But-
a dude
but
who made his bones off a bow tie.
Tucker's, though, an interesting candidate because he really could unite the MAGA base in a way that I can't think of anybody other than maybe JD Vance, just because of his placement, nothing to do with his character or abilities. But Tucker can win over all the Gen Z online guys that listen to his show on Twitter, while also winning over the people that watch Fox News and Hannity that knew him from the Fox News days.
I also think Tucker would do decently well with the far left because he doesn't take AIPAC money, and he's so anti-AIPAC in Israel and stuff like that. Like he would do, almost like that apathetic anarchist left. I think they could maybe be drawn to Tucker Carlson too, which is literally terrifying. Can we just? I don't want to act like that's not like normal. Like Tucker Carlson is not a good person to be running the country. I just want to make that vividly clear. That would be a disaster. But he is uniquely, I think you're right, where he could pose some threat. Because clearly qualifications don't matter at all, right? Because that would be his doc. He has no qualifications whatsoever. But he does know politics, and he speaks quickly, which people tend to like.
Right. I think there's a pretty high chance the nominee is Vance or somebody in the cabinet, like Hegseth or something.
Yeah, I do. I would think, or Rubio.
Right.
I think Rubio
definitely
could be the nominee.
Oh, yeah.
But it's most likely Vance. Anyway, I just wanted to. I thought that was a good question by Mike.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, and one we may be talking about as time goes on, further and further. You know, that wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world to me, though. Like him running, that seems like on the table.
No, and certainly the meme war between Tucker and Gavin would be entertaining.
Gavin would lose. I actually think Gavin would lose. In a vacuum, I think Gavin would lose. In the context of like you said, I think he would win. But Gavin, I think, would have a tough time in a debate format because he has a lot of hypocritical kind of stances. Even if I think they're right, but with like and Tucker would feast off that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
yeah.
Anyways, back to the news, Linda. Thank you for you just brought up Tucker and it made me think about it. So, time for my clip of the week. I need to click my Linda. Please, for the love of God, can you please?
It's time for the clip of the week.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
It's in the vein of this, what we've been talking about before we go into this. It was the meeting with Japan's newly elected Prime Minister, Sane Takaichi.
Say it ain't so.
I know. So she won big. I'm sure not a lot of listeners follow Japanese politics, but she's a recent winner, and she like smoked the election. She won big time, and basically she won being kind of more of a hardliner. She's not like MAGA, but she's like a conservative, pro-Japan, like, you know, we should maybe think about arming ourselves, like a lot of China fear type things, and, you know, economic stuff. Because, you know, then for those who don't know, Japan obviously hasn't been able to have like a standing military really since World War II, and also has been dealing with some problems with the yen and the currency exchange and stuff like that. So just like with Trump, with Biden, like whenever there's these kind of larger macro issues, a more conservative front usually does well in those stuff. That just tends to be the case. I don't know why. Really don't know why conservatives get the moniker for being good with the economy. They aren't. When's the last time a Republican has left office not in an economic spiral? I'm waiting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, every time they leave office, it's a nightmare. They never leave the country in good shape, ever. Not like in 100 years. Like, it's like, can we talk about how they're bad at the economy? But anyway, nevertheless. So
that'll be a topic in a new blog post I'm going to put out within the next day or two. So,
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
nice.
Check that out. Yeah.
Check it out, guys. So I wanted to play a clip of a moment that happened with the newly elected prime minister. She was in D.C. this week. Rick, did you see this clip? You may have already seen this clip.
I read what was said. I haven't. I didn't actually listen.
I think it's worth taking a listen. So let me throw it up on the screen and go from there. So this is courtesy of, I think, NBC. All right, ready?
Like Japan about the war before attacking Iran. So
all right, let me start from the beginning. My bad.
Japan and US are very good friends. But one question, why didn't you tell US allies in Europe and Asia, like Japan, about the war before attacking Iran? So we are very confused about we Japanese citizens.
Well, one thing, you don't want to signal too much. You know, when we go in, we went in very hard, and we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay, why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay, right?
Ooh. It got an ooh. It literally got a audible ooh, and you could see her eyes just like go.
It's the bad open micer strikes again. It really is like one of Trump's one big aspect of his personality is that he's a shitty open mic comedian struggling to do crowd work.
It's just
it rears its ugly head at the worst, most important times with leaders of other countries.
Again, it's just like, it would be one thing in the context of like a normal thing. This is in the context of a war where he was bitching that they weren't helping enough. And he's like, oh, you remember Pearl Harbor? What the hell was that about? It's just so weird. It's an embarrassment. It's an international embarrassment. Again. Like, it's just, pause, Nick. But like, Japan is our biggest Asian ally. It's not even close. Since World War II, Japan by far is our best friend. And maybe the Philippines, you could argue, or Taiwan, but not even. I think Japan would be number one. So in terms of economic ally, not even close. So he's so bad with his allies. He can't. It's so weird to me how he's so much nicer to Putin than he is to these guys. I just don't understand it.
Right. And he's such a child and he needs an assistant to be in his ear before these moments going, okay, whatever you do, just don't make a joke about Pearl Harbor or Hiroshima. Can we take Pearl Harbor and Hiroshima off the table and you can riff about anything else other than those two topics? Please.
Don't. And it just shows you too, like, he doesn't know anything else about Japan other than that.
Right,
like,
exactly.
He probably doesn't know what has happened in that country over the last 80 years. He doesn't know who that woman is. I mean, he probably doesn't even know her name. Like, the idea that he has any know-how about whatever has happened in Asia over the last 70 years is crazy. No one briefed him. Or if they did, he didn't listen. There's no way.
It's so bad. It's just embarrassing.
Yeah, I just thought that was just a good moment. So this week too, we had more Bondi drama. So Bondi was voted to get subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee. They voted 24-19, so it was bipartisan, to subpoena Bondi after her big flop a few weeks ago, the Dow Jones, blah, 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 that flop. And because of that, she didn't go to the subpoena, but she did show up for an unsworn briefing instead, which, of course, was a way you would imagine to avoid testifying under oath. Why else is she just meeting with them in a closed room, right? Apparently, in the briefing, Democrats asked her a bunch, why won't you actually just go and testify under oath? She said she wouldn't do it. She threw a little fit. Who's surprised? We saw how she acts in public. My God, how I wonder how she acts behind closed doors. And so eventually what happened was that all the Democrats walked out of the briefing, I guess you'd say, and they said it was a fake hearing. They were like pretty upset. The Republicans were mad that the Democrats walked out, and in fact, a few of the people, including Boebert, who had originally voted to subpoena Bondi, said that they won't anymore because of how bad the Democrats acted. That seems like nonsense. I am curious, though, what you think about it. I have a clip from Rep. Summer Lee and her walkout, like that. Maybe we should play first. Do you want to watch that really quick?
Yeah, sure.
All right, just because I think it's worth showing. Oh God. Here, let me share this. All right, ready?
A fake deposition, fake hearing with Pam Bondi, where Chairman Comer called me a bitch. So here's what actually happened. We had already subpoenaed her because she has not been in compliance with our subpoena and the Epstein Transparency Act to release the full, complete, unredacted Epstein files. She has been withholding them. She has been obstructing justice since last July. And a couple weeks ago, we finally got bipartisan support to subpoena her, to bring her into our committee to ask questions. Now, today's attempt, sham of a hearing, was your attempt to bypass that. Multiple times we asked her if she would come in and she would talk to our committee on the record, under oath, in the public. She refused to do so. So instead of directing any more questions to her where she's not under oath, where she can continue to lie to us, I directed my questions to our chairman to see if he would compel her to comply with the subpoena that he signed and that he issued. He could not respond. I asked him if she did not come, if he would hold her in contempt, move with contempt proceedings, like he did with other people who he said did not comply with our subpoenas. And instead of answering this simple question with a yes, of course, he said that I was bitching and that I was wasting his time and that we didn't have to talk about this anymore. So that's where we are. That's why we are trying to move to impeach her. That's why we introduced those articles of impeachment, because it is clear that she has no intention on cooperating with Congress. She has no intention on cooperating with the American people. She is not seeking justice for survivors or anyone else. She is there to run cover for Donald Trump, for his allies, and for herself. And it's time that we get her out of there.
Well said. I mean,
exactly.
well said. Why won't she testify under oath? And frankly, let's remember that the Clintons did for the exact same thing.
Right. She won't, because she's still trying to figure out how she can lie and how she cannot blame Trump, because that would ruin her career. But she also doesn't want to take the blame, which could also ruin her career. So I think she's still game planning that.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, and she also maybe lied under oath last time she was under oath. So right. I mean,
but also, like, how terrible of these Republicans to support having her testify under oath, then having her testify not under oath, and when the Democrats walk out and say she's supposed to be under oath, they say, you know what, you guys are so annoying that we don't even know if we're going to make her testify anymore. And it's like, wait, isn't this about like a child sex trafficking investigation? Like, and they're just like, you know what, we don't really care anymore because the Democrats were annoying one day.
Yeah, but Democrats being annoying is the justification for half of conservative behavior, period.
Right. Really all of Trump's presidency.
Literally, I mean, they were irritated about the pronouns in the emails, and they voted for Trump. That's it. Their platform is basically, I don't want to vote for Democrats. They're irritating. And that's it.
Right.
That's it.
Mark Maron said in his stand-up, did us liberals really annoy the country into fascism?
Yes. 100%. Without a doubt. 100%. That, to me, And it's true. Democrats are so annoying. I'm not going to sit here and say they're not. They are irritating. That's why the show's called Lonely Liberal. We're irritated by them all of the time. They're wicked annoying. But come on. come on here.
They're literally just trying to enforce the law that passed with bipartisan support, the Epstein transparency.
We're not asking that they have to get a beer with these guys.
Right.
No one's telling you, man, you got to get a beer with Summer Lee. I'm just saying, just let them do their job. My God, it's so annoying. Okay, going on to more of the fascist, in the fascist cluster of this week's news. So the Pentagon announced that they plan to keep the National Guard until 2029, in D.C., that is. So pretty wild. It needs Hegseth's signature to be true. I think we'll see that any day now. I didn't realize that there are around 3,000 National Guard troops in D.C. at the moment. For some reason, I thought it was lower. 3,000 troops is quite a bit for a fairly small city. I'm sorry. And I don't care. I mean, it may have working, it may not be working. I don't know enough about the DC crime. I know that it was overstated in the beginning. I'll say this. If you really think it's a good look for our army to be the police force of our national capital, I don't know what to tell you. Because to me, that seems like dystopian future 101.
Right. Yeah, generally having active duty troops walking through neighborhoods when there's no war isn't a good sign.
That's
a country.
Bad thing. we don't want that.
Generally, they aren't doing that for fun and exercise.
It's typically not a sign that the things are going well when they have the troops.
It's insane. And reminder that the crime rate in plenty of southern cities in Republican states is higher than the Washington, D.C. crime rate.
Yeah. Why aren't they in New Orleans?
And a reminder that there's no crime epidemic. Crime spiked during the first 2 years of the pandemic like it did in every city. And it decreased significantly in 2024 when Biden was president. So it was on the way down from the pandemic peak already in that specific city. Plus, it's not more crime than cities they're not in. So all of it's just
Houston?
Like for control. Yeah.
And it's the optics of, and we don't even talk about this on the show, but all those Mao Zedong styled banners that Trump is hanging up everywhere, okay, you want the army policing the Capitol while also building-sized banners are being held up of the president's face. Yeah, that's normal. That's what liberal democracies do. Oh, what country has troops as cops and puts faces of their leader everywhere? It's just, come on. We've seen this. It's almost like this is a thing that's happened before. Oh my God. What are you talking about? Those banners are creepy. I don't know if you've seen these.
With a president who will threaten to sue you if you criticize his banners.
My God, how dare you? You don't love his mugshot banner of him snarling. It's so stupid. Anyways, on that note, so this week, 2 former FBI agents filed federal lawsuits against Kash Patel specifically, and Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice. They identified as John Doe 1 and John Doe 2, of course, due to threats of doxing and whatnot. So both of these people worked on Operation Arctic Frost, which was the investigation into Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election. Yes, he did that. Remember that? Remember when the current president tried to overturn an election? People seem to have forgotten that was a thing. And anyways, they were both fired in fall 2025, which happened after Senator Chuck Grassley, who, by the way, is one old man. That is, how old is he? 92?
Yeah, I think 92, right?
Yikes. Chuck, go to bed, dude. Time for a nap.
Doesn't look a day older than 100.
Yeah, 92. So surprisingly, Chuck made a whoopsie and released unredacted DOJ files, which unveiled these people's names, and they got fired. So they're saying that they got fired out, unlawfully because they were doing something that was politicized by the current president. And again, not a normal thing to happen. This isn't something that typically happens where every department head is being charged by former agencies members that they're using information as a political weapon. That doesn't happen all of the time like this. And just another example, just like with RFK Jr., just like with Tulsi Gabbard, just like with Pete Hegseth, just like with Pam Bondi, just like with Kristi Noem before she got canned. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just another piece of evidence for the authoritarianism of like this administration. And
Never
it
ends.
really has escalated since his first term. And it's like, obviously, he was firing people left and right during his first term. But this term has really been just like almost like he has Steve Bannon reading like The Rise of Hitler on his bedstand and then like whispering his advice into Trump's ear every night. Like they're really just following all the tactics of like authoritarians.
It's a bad look when the former FBI agents are publicly suing the current director. That doesn't happen very often. This is not a thing. And speaking of failed secretaries of whatever, Mark Wayne Mullen had his testimony this week. He cleared committee, unbelievably so, which almost certainly guarantees that he will be approved as the nomination. The real standout moment of that was Rand Paul's comments on Mark Wayne Mullen, specifically, calling him like a hothead and stuff like that, and bringing up stuff that I didn't know, which is Rand Paul got assaulted a few years back pretty badly. I remember reading about it, but I didn't realize the extent of it. He got really messed up to the point where he was on like life support type equipment. They had to like cut his lung off and something, like it's crazy stuff. And Mark Wayne Mullen's on record saying he deserved it basically because he went against Trump or whatever. So fair enough. I think hothead might be underselling it, but yeah, it seems like this guy's got an anger problem, and maybe not the guy we need to have running ICE agents who seemingly also have an anger issue.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know if this guy's equipped with the tact needed to handle nuanced situations like that. But yeah, I mean, it seems like he's surefire locked in after clearing committee.
I mean, he's a 5-0 fighter, so what, he's going to use his fist.
He's going to cane people and duel people in the Senate or whatever. He's such an asshole. Another asshole. Also, fun fact about Mark Wayne Mullen that I didn't know until this week. Apparently, Mark Wayne bought a bunch of Chevron stock 5 days before the Venezuela thing. And Chevron's the only oil and gas company in the U.S. really that really operates out of Venezuela. So wonder why he did that.
Yeah, wow.
Wonder if Pelosi gave him a tip, guys. I mean, oddly didn't happen on Pelosi's to watch. It's almost like she's not the only one doing it. It's almost like Republicans are way richer. Anyway, but to the Department of Homeland Security, we haven't really talked about it that much. Obviously, we have, but it's got to be the lowest of low-key government shutdowns I've ever seen, where we are now on day 35 of the Department of Homeland Security being shut down. Now, again, not ICE and the Border Patrol, because they got additional funding in the Big Beautiful Bill. So they have billions to keep churning. TSA doesn't, and that's where most people will have noticed it. The TSA agents have been working without pay. In fact, 50,000 TSA officers and 100,000 DHS employees have been working without pay, and they missed their first full paycheck March 14th. So since this, 365 TSA officers have resigned, And it's important to remember that each of them takes 4 to 6 months to train. Also, they're calling out, they're taking sick days, they're taking whatever, holidays and whatnot like that. So this is a disaster, frankly. I mean, there's talk now that airports may have to close because of this. Yeah, they're gonna have to stop doing flights. All the airlines are saying this, United and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. This is a disaster, and again, I doesn't make me feel safe.
No, and like 300 something resigned, which makes sense if you're not getting paid. But think of the thousands that didn't resign and are just half-assing their TSA job because they're
Yeah.
not getting paid.
Well, I was in Detroit last week, right? And I felt horrible for those guys. They were going through the motion. You could see it, you know? And let's just say they're not usually, the most alert bunch. I wouldn't call them our nation's finest always. But
It's a mixed
you know,
bag.
yeah, yeah, mixed bag is a good way to put it. There's a wide range of personalities and body types that are allowed to be our frontline security, and that's okay. I trust the process. That being said, pay these poor guys. I feel awful. The first time in my life, I think I felt bad for the TSA agents.
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And
I feel
it's
awful
similar.
for them.
It's similar to when they with the previous shutdown with the air traffic controller stuff that like because rich people fly so much, like it's every politician cares about this. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
100%.
Because politicians themselves fly, like them and their donors probably fly more than anybody else on the whole planet. So
Definitely.
like they're not happy. Like even if you think these politicians are totally full of shit and totally selfish and only care about their lives, like can affect their life.
Totally.
So like
and
they're looking for ways to get through it, and there's like these proposals to like just fund this and nothing else. So maybe it'll
spring
get
break
sorted
is
soon.
coming,
Of
which
course,
is a big
which-
flying.
That's a big deal for you. You're famously a big spring break guy.
I'll be in Mexico. I'll be soaking up the sun.
Harps off.
Whee! That's me. But it's spring break. That's a big time of flying. That's probably like, I bet you March and April are other than the summer, the biggest flying times.
Yeah, because you
Out of-
school vacation for kids and spring break for colleges and everything.
And yeah, I just, this is a disaster. I feel bad. Keep it up, TSA agents, please, my God. They're actually, I say actually like it isn't a given. They're a really important job. I mean, my God.
Of course.
I really trust them to do a good job. Like they you know me, I'm terrified of flying. I'm
Yeah.
scared, so I don't like this one bit. It is important to remember too, though, that the Senate did vote again this week to not sign funding for them. They keep not doing it, which is a bummer. Some other quick hitters before we get to the corner. This week, Elon Musk was found liable for Twitter investor fraud. That seems to have gone under the radar, that he is now probably committing a crime. And I can't say I'm surprised.
No.
Mm.
I feel like he is in the same place Trump was in a few years ago, where it's like the question isn't if they committed any crimes, it's like which crimes do they want to prosecute? Because
Exactly.
there's clearly a lifelong history of crimes happening.
It's just, he did not great for the people, but great for himself. Like, he skirted that Epstein drama pretty quickly. It's pretty wild given how brutal those emails were between him and Jeff. And people are just kind of giving him a pass, similar to the Nazi salute on the inaugural, because he's awkward. He's really riding, I'm really a weird guy, I'm awkward guy. That's giving him a pretty big blank check to kind of get away with anything. Socially, that
Right.
is.
Yeah,
But why?
totally.
It's bullshit. It's total bullshit. He's not an idiot. He's a smart guy.
And also, this isn't even a conspiracy because it's so obvious, but like he has control over Twitter's algorithm because he owns the company. So it's like Twitter, you could say, is the central place that the Epstein story grew over the past few years. So like he has total control to like use the lever of, oh, let me suppress any stories on Twitter that have my name with Epstein while not suppressing the other Epstein stories.
I mean,
You
we
know
have
what I
no
mean?
idea.
Right.
Well, yeah, and not to mention he also owns Starlink, which is a huge so he owns the Wi-Fi, the rockets, the satellites, the media, the cars, the location data, and PayPal, which is your transactional data. So, and then he went to Doge and did the Doge thing and found all your social security information. So I don't know what to tell you guys. like that guy just absolutely ripped off everybody. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, he's not just a quirky nerd.
Yeah. Oh, how fun. He could have been that. He was tempoing to be that until he went on Rogan and smoked a blunt. That was
Yeah, that was a turning point.
That blunt thing really ruined him. It's a real bummer. Rogan really has caused a lot of problems. There's no way to put it. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about this Save America Act again, because again, we're hearing Trump and all of them talk a lot about it. But what has gotten less coverage is that now a lot of several Republican states are passing their own versions of the Save America Act. So I think they're starting to realize that it's probably going to be a no-go at the federal level, at least in the current iteration it's in, which it's highly likely it could change and be, just come back in a slightly less bad way. But it may honestly be worse if it does this state level, because states actually do have the responsibility for like collecting votes and casting votes and running elections and stuff like that. That is a states' right kind of issue. So not only is it possible that they could more legally require these proof of citizenship type stuff and a lot of the Save Act stuff, but it would actually probably be harder to litigate after the fact just because it is at the state level. But do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think because it's at the state level and at the federal level, there's a constitutional amendment about the poll tax that you can't. And obviously, a lot of these voting rights, voter ID laws, like the litigation centers around whether this is a tax on voting. If you're making people go somewhere and spend time and potentially money to obtain a specific type of ID to be able to vote, like, does that qualify as a tax? So I would assume that the states, wouldn't have to fight like that as much of a battle of getting it through the courts for that reason
Totally.
too.
And they can finesse their own local law. You know what I mean? Like their own state kind of thing. But anyway, that's the news. Do you have anything else you want to get to before we chug
No,
along?
just a quick culture corner
Wait,
segment.
Linda?
It's time for Rick's Cultural Corner.
Thank
The
you,
problem with Linda is she's so in and she's so out. She's just, I don't know if her heart's really in it.
Yeah, I don't know. I smelled alcohol on her breath earlier, so I think she's been drinking at work again. So we may need to have a talk with her.
And we may need, write in some suggestions if you want to be.
If you want to be Linda.
We are not offering pay, but we do offer great experience. No. Whenever we do get an intern, we will pay them.
5% of equity.
No! Are we offering shares of the Lonely Liberal Media? Maybe we should. Maybe
Read the
that's all
fine print, but
yeah, it actually does not vest. But anyway, what's up?
So yeah, I came across this headline and thought it required some discussion. Let me just read you this ABC News headline, and then we can explain what it means. Independence police say Barbies possibly contaminated with fentanyl at Cargo Largo.
What? Wait, can you run that one back? What the fuck?
You're probably wondering how we got here. So the headline is Independence police say Barbies possibly contaminated with fentanyl at Cargo Largo.
What is Independence Police? What is that?
Right. Every 2 words needs an explanation.
That whole that that had to have been written by an AI, right? Independence Police.
So
Wait,
it
what?
takes place in a town called Independence, Missouri.
Naturally.
But it's like that they had to know that they were writing a clickbait headline, writing Independence Police, because I'm picturing a bunch of like shirtless dudes holding flags, like
Yeah, the King of Independence. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's about a town, Independence, Missouri, where there's a large discount store called Cargo Largo, which I don't know if that's a play on Mar-a-Lago at all.
Write in if you have a Cargo Largo in your hometown.
So I think there's only one actual location. I looked on their website.
Okay.
It looks kind of like we have Savers around here, kind of like Salvation Army or like Building 19. I think it's kind of one of those, like a lot of used stuff, but like it's a store that has everything.
Like a shittier Marshalls or TJ Maxx or something like.
Right, exactly. Where you buy cargo, I guess. That happens to be that happens to be Largo.
Yeah, what a Largo Cargo. It's the laziest name. First, Cargo Largo. That reminds me of when we were in Spanish class in high school, and they would be like, Nick, like, how do you say like fridge in Spanish? And I'd be like, refrigerator? Like, you just say stuff like
Right.
Cargo Largo, of course, Bargo Schmargo. Ditter datter, batter watter. Just words.
Yeah, so apparently Cargo Largo is having a problem with Barbie dolls contaminated with fentanyl, and the Independence police are investigating. So
when they say laced, what do they mean?
So a customer
How do you lace a Barbie doll?
A customer allegedly, so it's a Barbie doll that comes in like the typical like plastic. It's not like shrink wrap, but you know how it's like you have to cut it open when you get it. Yeah, like that electronics come in, like batteries and stuff.
I hate those, by the way. Those are like the worst. You can never get them open. They cut your hands. It's awful.
They're sharp.
Yeah, I hate how sharp they are.
So a customer says she bought a Barbie for her daughter. She went in her car and opened the package, and a poof of powder went in her face.
Yikes.
She described it as a poof.
That's the last thing I'd want to happen when I opened a package, a poof of anything coming.
Right, and you're saying the worst case scenario is this poof is fentanyl. Like that's the
like,
number one worst thing it could be. And it turns out she brought it, returned it, the police came, tested it, and there was fentanyl. And they tested other Barbies still on the shelf, and some of them had fentanyl powder on them.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so there was like a few days where this story was like unfolding, where they were like just putting out warnings, don't buy the Barbies at Cargo Largo, but like we can't confirm yet if they're, and then they confirm like, oh, actually a lot of them are contaminated, but we think there might be 2 or 3 missing Barbies that have fentanyl on them. So authorities asked everyone who purchased a Barbie like between this period to contact the police, and then the police updated yesterday that all the Barbies have been recovered that they were looking for. So I don't understand, like, I guess it was from one shipment. Like, how do they know that other Barbies that are coming haven't been contaminated too? Like, I have some questions about how thorough this investigation was.
I have
and
a lot
why.
of questions about that. Yeah, and also, Also, were they the only why were only Barbies at Cargo Largo contaminated? Because you have to
Right, and
imagine shipments are wider range than just one store. Were they
they
special
released,
ordered?
like, a picture of the Barbie in the container, and it's just a normal Barbie, like, there's no photos of, like, powder on them, so, like, that makes me think it wasn't, like, because you always hear of, like, drugs like, in movies, drug smugglers put, like, cocaine into teddy bears,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they're,
yeah.
like, shipping them across the ocean. Like, at first, I thought, like, "Oh, that's what it must be," but, like, I don't think so because they haven't said that. I think it's just, like, trace amounts.
And
So I
also,
really
was the
don't know.
girl okay? Like, were the girl who saw the poof?
Yeah, she was fine.
This is
So
really weird.
it must have been trace amounts, even if, like, a poof is certainly not trace, but maybe there was other it's baby powder with .01 fentanyl, makes
But
sense.
why would anyone do that? Like, what's the point of that? A mass hysteria at the Cargo Largo in Independence, Missouri? Like, just
Right, and
to
it feeds the, like, right-wing hysteria of, like, liberals giving out edibles on Halloween to
oh
5-year-olds,
my
like, that
god.
whole myth, like, this is very similar of, like, the Mexicans are putting fentanyl on Barbie dolls.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. That's just so true. Though that Snickers bar has knives in it. I grew up thinking that that was, like, on the table. Like, you could open up a
Yeah, I
freaking
grew up
Snickers and there'd be
I I
switchblades
grew
in
up
them.
feeling my Kit Kat bars before eating them.
Literally. Like, I was like, "Oh, there's a real like, a good percentage of my Halloween candy probably has blades in them." How would they have done that?
I know. And, like, this story is, like, heavily covered, like, this isn't, like, an obscure, like, Not the Onion thing, like, this is being covered by a lot of news networks, so it's getting around, so, yeah, you can imagine how some media might run with this.
I wonder why I am really surprised that it's that it has to have been someone at that store, right? If it's only that store. It seems highly unlikely that there was just this one very tiny shipment of Barbies that only goes to Cargo
Right, like,
Largo.
was it also in a box? Was it below a box on a ship that had leaking fentanyl powder? Like, what could have
Why would that and it only just happened to go to the one that made it all the way through the truck to freaking Cargo Largo, Missouri? Like,
right,
you
and
know what I
there was
mean?
a
Like, how?
yeah,
How could that be true?
and I'm confused that there was enough powder to poof, to be described as a poof, because
Yeah, because
that means that there's a lot.
yeah, that means it like, pff, like it went up in the air. Because a poof is like you saw it. Like it's in the air, you see it, it puffed up like a plume.
Right.
Huh. Huh.
Yeah, so we'll continue to follow this story for more updates and
Yeah.
let the listeners know.
Forget the freaking Iran war, man. This is way
Yeah.
more interesting and also terrifying, to be honest. I mean, holy smokes. That's so scary.
Right.
Like, Jesus Christ. Like, imagine you're that poor mom and you think, "Oh my god, like there was a poof of smoke in my Barbie." And it actually turns out to be fentanyl? Like, you
Right.
probably thought everyone until those test results probably like, "Oh, come on, Linda, it's fine. There's no way there's freaking
Right. There's
fentanyl in
no
your
chance.
Barbie." And it comes back, actually, not only does that Barbie have fentanyl, the whole Cargo Largo is covered.
Right.
It has to be a staff member did it. It has to be.
Right. A staff member, like, spilled their tainted cocaine or tainted or fentanyl or something.
Or it's like an elaborate prank or an attack on the citizens of Independence.
Right. Or somebody's trying to kill children with fentanyl on Barbie.
Only in that
Which is-
random town. Which seems like a uniquely American experience. That seems like something that could happen in this country.
Right. It just
Like,
seems like something Trump would make up is happening.
yeah, they're putting
But
fentanyl in the
unfortunately, it
Barbie
seems
dolls.
exactly right.
Oh my god. Oh, I want. Where does and God knows, they're probably made by Hasbro, which probably makes their Barbies in Mexico. Oh my god. This is gonna be a thing. Speaking of candy, do you remember when Tucker Carlson and the rest of the right were mad that they were making the green M&M not sexy anymore?
Yeah.
They need to run
Yeah.
that if Tucker runs for president. Remember when you were wicked invested in the sexuality of a fucking M, dude?
Yeah.
Dude, why are you attracted to candy? Like,
Remember when you were criticizing the body type of Mrs. M&M on air?
remember when you said I
On
like
a
her
major Fox
stilettos?
News show.
Why is she wearing flats now? It makes me sad. Remember that one? Tucker has done such a good job rebranding. It's crazy. His rebrand has been massive. He handled getting fired from Fox for lying on air about voter fraud and parlayed that into I'm a cool bro. Pretty incredibly.
Right, and he got fired from CNN for being a cheesy bow tie hacky host. And then he transitioned to the right-wing Fox News career, and this is like his third career.
And then he got fired for lying about the Dominion scandals, like the Dominion voting machines. They had it in the settlement that Fox paid. It directly, those texts of Tucker saying, I can't believe we're covering this. This is total bullshit. And then going out there and covering it.
And like Fox News's average audience, I think, is like around 80 years old. Like that's not, I'm not even kidding. Like, I think
Are you joking?
I think it's like that old. It's so old. I remember one study years ago put their average audience at 65 plus. Like they didn't even measure it because of how old they were. But but like, so that makes the turn more impressive though, is because like most, like Tucker's popularity among 20-year-old men is like massive, which is not typically happens with like a Fox News primetime host.
Definitely didn't happen to Bill O'Reilly after he got canned for sexual assault. I mean, but it is, though, the horseshoe, though, about what we talked about a few weeks ago about how Gen Z men are more conservative than freaking boomer men. It almost like, there's almost like a nice link there. And then lastly, on that, actually, I was thinking about this week. I want to get your thoughts before we get out of here. How much of a bummer is that that the Gen Z guys are so conservative? Because my whole life, and we've talked about this since I've known you, literally since middle school. Oh man, can you wait until these old guys are dead and gone? We'll finally get to run this progressive paradise. My God, we just have to make it outlive these kids. And now, from behind, they're coming up worse. We're never going to get out of it. So that whole myth of like, we just have to wait until they're done, that ain't happening. That's not, we need to put that to bed, that hope.
Right. And we need to kill the idea that Democrats can reclaim the Obama coalition.
It's
just in general. We need to kill that whole idea. They thought Hillary, Biden, and then Harris and none of them were able to do it. Even Biden squeaking out his one win still didn't rebuild the Obama coalition. Like he still won way fewer states, and that's never going. But like the whole idea of that was like Obama created. He had such a stronghold on obviously people of color, but also young people, of all races, including young white people and college educated people. And he had the Midwest working class, which like the Democrats haven't been able to get back since. It is definitely depressing, especially, I mean, Trump just did so much better with a lot of these demographic groups this time than he did last time too.
And I'm sure that while a lot of younger voters who voted for Trump are pissed about how crypto didn't boom or whatnot, the war stuff, and like I'm sure they don't like Trump anymore, but they will still like Tucker. You know what I mean? That's why we're wondering if he could win or not. Because he's far enough removed, and those views are still attractive. What's weird about Trump is he actually never believed any of the views he sold them. So they're mad at him for burning them. But like the Nick Fuentes type, They hate Trump now because he isn't who he said he was, but they wish he said he was what they said, you know? It's not that they don't believe those ideas anymore. They just are mad that they're not the ideas aren't actually happening. That's a big difference. I think people are, sometimes you'll see on the New York Times and whatnot, like Gen Z voters turning on Trump. No, yeah, they're turning on Trump, not the values that they voted for Trump. Like, they still like Rogan, they still like Theo Von, they still think all that shit that they thought a year and a half ago. They don't not think that anymore. Yeah, but that's not obvious. I don't think people get that. You know, I think that's getting overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, like, even though when it's important to talk about, like, the people in the MAGA world that are turning on Trump, like, over Iran, and, like, the Joe Rogan and Sean Ryans who have, like, such a massive audience of millennial and Gen Z men, it's important to talk about them saying, like, this is not what we voted for and we're disappointed, but we shouldn't get too optimistic because I can very easily see Rogan spending the next 3 years criticizing Trump, only to 2028, it's J.D. Vance versus Gavin Newsom, and Rogan's like, you know what, Newsom and the left are just too radical, so I still have to vote for Vance, even though I wasn't, like...
Exactly, and they'll come up with reasons to explain it. They'll say, well, and because Vance will be able to explain it better than Trump can. And so, Trump hasn't said a coherent thought in 10 years. So, yeah, that's scary, man. I worry, and to start on the beginning of the show, I said, don't be too depressed, and now I'm ending on a depressing note of that we are going to be dealing with this for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Like,
we're literally ending the episode by saying the future is bleak inside.
See you next week, guys. Da-da-da-da-da. What a show. What an uplifting moment. No, I mean, the future is bleak in the sense that we will not be, like, we are not going to outlive the people who thought the shit that we've been groaning about for our entire lives. Like, those views have now manifested themselves throughout every age, but greatly in the younger group than we were expecting. So it's not that the depressing part is that it's not, I thought we could maybe just live and it would eventually just curve away. you know what I mean?
Like the John McCain and Dick Cheneys are passing away.
Old people are gone, and they were the legacy. These are all legacy beliefs. Oh, the women's roles in the house, gay rights, blah blah blah. This is just old people being old, and when they die, we'll get to be more progressive because they won't be kicking around, and they have an outsized voice in politics because they vote really well. That was my view at 18 years old. I would have thought that for sure, But now it's 100% true. That is not happening. That is not happening. And so it's just something that I think we're going to have to figure out, and why it's so important for the Democrats to fucking have some integrity and, actually resonate with their freaking base. Because if they think they're going to do it just by kicking it around, they have a lot. I don't think so. These people do not like them.
Right. Exactly.
It's just like selling seniors. It's the same thing now. Like, selling a Gen Z guy to vote for you is the same level of difficulty a Democrat will have as voting as a 75-year-old senior guy, like, on average, And I don't think we're thinking about it like that enough.
Right.
Anyway. All right. Well, that's our show, folks. Thank you for listening. Yeah, no. It's a long one, but a longy but goodie. No.
Absolutely.
We'll see. Thank you, Rick, per usual.
I'll see you next week.
Talk to you later. And that's our show, folks. Thank you so much for listening today. If you like the show, like I said off the top, give it a review or, 5-star rating, comment, like, subscribe. You guys are really helpful with all that, and I really do appreciate it. We'll be back on Wednesday with our normal scheduled programming, aka solo deep dive about something good. We're probably going to be talking about Cuba, I think, but we will see when we get there and what crazy stuff could happen from now and then. So who knows? But really happy to have you, and keep it together. We got it. All right.